Hello and welcome to another Star Citizen Addicts Anonymous. I'm Nikki batgirl D'Angelo. This is episode 64. I say that with a little bit of apprehension and a little bit of curiosity because I can't believe I've been up here for 64 episodes of this, 8 or 9 episodes of 5 for Ben Lesnick, 24 episodes of State of the Game, and countless numbers of other episodes where I was reviewing a ship or just talking about other games. I've really done a lot of videos, about 230 of them or more. And I think that with the help of all of you, I've gotten better and better over time. Well, that's not always the case. Last week on Monday, which is about 8 days ago, I had Chris and Sandy on the show. And they were kind enough to spend about 30 to 35 minutes with me and record an interview. The only problem with that was there was no audio. As you can see up here, I turned it into a silent movie, and they were so perfectly cool about it. It made me just see how amazingly awesome that they are. Now, they've had their own technical difficulties in the past, and me building my green screen studio and trying to get things working, well, it's almost done, not quite done yet. My Patreons are definitely helping me, but I had a big fail, and I did what anybody that fails does. I picked it up and I turned it into something that worked. Well, let's talk about this week, okay? This was a huge week of information that came out of the Cloud Imperium Games office in Santa Monica and in the other offices they have around the world. Lots and lots and lots of information. Let's go back and let's talk about I'm going to skip over the things that were introduced on Friday because they're going to be my features today. And those would be, of course, mining and the Orion. But I want to go back to 2 weeks ago when we were talking about rental equipment credits and how overblown and controversial the subject became. And I've talked about this a couple of times, but inside of the YouTube channel that Star Citizen has, it used to be Robert Space Industries, and of course, it's actually Cloud Imperium Games. Travis Day and I guess it's Calix Renault had a little video where they explained and detailed out what rental equipment credits are, how they're used, and how they came up with them. It's a good watch, and it puts everything right there into one simple piece of explainable content. I understood from the beginning what these were going to be, and I hope that they finally put it to rest with the rest of you that might have been naysayers. Now, I don't know who I'm talking to because I know that you all here in the Star Citizen Addicts Anonymous community have supported the REC. I don't know which type of people don't. I think there's a certain amount of exclusivity that early adopters of the game feel and might be entitled to, so I'm not challenging them on that at all. It's just, I think that you feel like, ooh, I donated early, I should get something that other people don't. Well, the game needs to be tested, and I think this is a perfect way for it to happen. So go out there and please listen or watch the video and hear what they have to say. In the comm link, there's always some little tidbits that can be turned back into real life, and one of those is lynch fever. And the Cloud Imperium Games office over in Santa Monica, everyone got sick. In fact, that's where I got my cold/flu or whatever it was from, and brought it back to Atlanta and gave it to everyone I know here. And they had a cute little comlink transmission over there. I think it was an Empire report or Empire News report. And it's pretty cool how they turned something that happened to them into a news report. There is something going on. It's a poll. I think it's still available, and it's help pick the next box art. Currently, they have 3. They have the Freelancer, the Hornet, and the Constellation. They have the 300i up there as a holding pattern, you know, as a placeholder. But they're trying to pick that 4th box art. And I think that means that we're going to have to buy 4 copies of the game to get all of them. I think that's just a joke, actually. You don't have to do that, though I know some of you will. But make sure you go out there and vote on your ship, your favorite ship. I, of course, picked the Retaliator. I already have the other 3 ships I really like on there. I wasn't going to say put the Mustang on the box. Obviously, I'm a Mustang-aholic. But I think that Retaliator is just so sweet and beautiful. It would look awesome on a box. Arena Commander 1.0.3 was introduced last week, and you're really going to have to go to the patch notes on the website to get a gist of what this was. And I put down 3 notes here: bug fixes, tweaks, and balancing. That's essentially what this patch was about. There were some things introduced, some new sounds for the Gladius and a new weapon from Gallinson. It's a bigger class 3 tarantula gun, but that was pretty much it. It doesn't mean that things are any different, or no, it doesn't mean that things haven't changed, but they haven't changed so much that the game is totally different. And that is, of course, going to happen soon after PAX East next month, when they release 1.1 and we get the social module and the first-person shooter and the Gladius and then eventually the Gladiator and other missing ships. This game is starting to pick up steam. It's really starting to snowball. And I hope that you all pay attention to the comlink, to Around the Verse, to Meet the Devs, and to Chris's letters. Speaking of the letters, there was another letter for the chairman out last week. This one was not there because we hit $1 million mark, and it might have been. It's there to explain just what I did. The snowball's starting to get bigger. It's starting to roll downhill, and it's picking up steam, and things are coming at us. And it was Chris's way of both thanking us and informing us on what was going to happen and thanking us for what we've already done for them. So there are some other things going on. Obviously, I talked about PAX East in many ways, and PAX East is going to be coming up in the early part of March. And it's there where we're going to get the demos, so the first-person shooter module and some other things that are going on. But they have a really cool thing going on right now. It's Help the Herald. What they want you to do is share the Facebook, retweet it, and there are some descriptions in the page that I have listed over here. And little by little, they're decrypting this image of the Herald as time goes on. I think it's how they reworked the Herald. It's new concept art for it. And hopefully they allow us to buy it again with LTI again after they show us this. It's probably going to look decent by the time it's done. So let's get into the features. We talked a little bit about the news. So today I want to talk about the first feature. And the first feature is going to be the design document on mining. Now there are going to be many professions inside of Star Citizen. You're going to have mining, fighter pilot, bounty hunter. You're going to have mercenary, pirate. You're going to have now real professions like explorer, salvage, the person, I don't know what they're calling it yet, that gets to upgrade, overclock, and mod engines and weapon systems. And of course, what we're going into today is mining. And professions are taking on a much different look and feel inside of Star Citizen than any other MMO I've ever played. They're going to take active interaction, not just clicking a button and mining a node, but actually doing many things. And it's going to take multiple people or NPCs that you have to make sure that they know what they're doing. This is a game changer, and this is totally different. And I don't know how else to say it, so let's go right into the feature, and here is my take on the design document for mining. From the start, Chris Roberts has stated that Star Citizen's Persistent Universe will be a multiplayer game. With Friday's release of the design document on the mining career, we now see just how important multiplayer will be in the game. Now, mining is just one of the many careers that you're going to be able to have. But unlike some other MMOs like World of Warcraft, Lord of the Rings, or Star Wars The Old Republic, you don't choose your professions and then level them up with ones and zeros, meaning by doing repetitive tasks you gain skill in it. Instead, the developers of Star Citizen chose to use Twitch mechanics for professions. What that means is that you're going to need real everyday skill in moving your mouse, keyboard, or joystick to actually master the game, and its many professions. The other part of it is that you can work any profession that you want, and sometimes need to master many of them for one particular one. Inside of mining, they talk about exploration, salvage, and mining, and piloting, all as being proficient skills that you'll need to have in order to become very successful. Your career in mining begins at the Trade and Development Division, While there, you'll decide to either work as a freelancer or work for the many different entities in the game. Both of these have advantages and disadvantages. The advantages of working for one of the many entities is they take care of all of the harder parts of mining, which in some ways could be finding a place to sell the material. While working for yourself gives you the unique advantage of being able to keep as much of the profit as possible for you and your crew. Mining will not be as boring as it will be in other MMOs. Instead of just clicking on a node and extracting it, or per se sitting over a node for hours on end and extracting it and putting it into a hopper, and then going back to that point to pick it up as you do in Eve, it's going to be something that's met with a little bit more danger. The asteroids are going to be moving in many different ways, and inside the asteroids they'll have gas pockets and other hazardous material that you're going to have to make sure that you have the right skill and right equipment to extract, and I'll explain that here. With mining came the release of the Orion for a sale. And on the Orion, you'll need many different specialists to operate the equipment on board. Everything from pilot to scan operator and beam operator, and even more will be needed. Here we see the design of one of the instruments, the laser seismometer, which will need to be manned during the operation of the beam. Little fluctuations in the movement and the stability of the asteroid will need to be monitored just to make sure that overmining the asteroid doesn't cause it to blow up or break apart. This is an early design of the beam operator's control panel. With information from the laser seismometer, the beam operator will know just how much power to apply into the beam and where to point it and for how long. This is a final screenshot that was given to us, and it's an early design of the AMP, the Analytical Materials Processor. This person's in charge of knowing exactly what they're extracting from the asteroid. That way they could communicate to the captain or specialist in charge of the expedition in order to tell if it's profitable or not to keep mining the particular asteroid they're on. Along with the release of the mining design document came the release of the Orion mining platform. And it's a platform, not a starship. It's about 170 meters long. Like I said, we'll get into this piece a little bit later. But look at the sheer size of this design. It entails every single piece of mining that you need, from pointing the beam to refining the cargo to holding it when you're done. I'm very impressed with this design document, and I'm looking forward to the other profession design documents as they come out. We already know two professions, one being pilot and one being mining. We have many more to go, everything from somebody that's able to update and modify and overclock the systems and weapons on your ship, to salvage, to exploration, and more. So stay tuned, because over the next few months, they will be releasing many more design documents on professions and mechanics in the game. That was quite informative, but if you read through the actual material that they have there, you'll get a much more encompassing idea of what this profession is going to be. It only gives me hope that me, who wants to be an explorer, because of course I have a Carrack, I can't wait to see what the design document is going to be on exploration. I'm sure it's going to be wonderful. Along with the design document on mining, we had a new ship introduced. It's actually a mining platform. It's huge, tremendous, 170 meters. It is the Orion, and let's talk a little bit about the Orion here in this next feature. In our first feature today, I spoke a little bit about the mining mechanic, and now I'm going to speak about the rugged Colossus, the Orion mining platform. Now, unlike the Carrack and the Surveyor before it, the Orion is coming after its design document for the profession it's tailor-built for. That means every element of its design is made to make mining easier and more efficient. The Orion comes with all the features needed to perform its job and the accommodations for the crew. It even comes with rotating cargo and refinery areas, so the cargo or extracted pieces of asteroid are actually in a 1G environment. Knowing Star Citizen backers and my viewers, the ones and zeros about specific ships are very important. The length makes it one of the longest ships that we could own right now at 170 meters, and very boxy, very square, at 50 meters high by 50 meters wide, which of course will be its widest in its cargo and refinery areas. Now, the null cargo mass is now computed in a different way. It's computed more accurately, so that should stay the same from now until the end of the design process. And if it does change, it's going to change because of alterations made to the space frame. It can carry 600 standard units of cargo or 16,288 SCU, which we don't know. That's Star Citizen units, I guess. Max crew of 6. It has a size 6 power plant, and we don't know what that is yet. 4 TR6 engines to move this behemoth. And it's got 12 TR3 thrusters. Its max shield is 6. And then we have a couple of weapons on it. It's got a size 4, class 4 tractor beam turret, and then 4 size 1 flak guns, and a size 6 mining laser. So while you're out there mining, it's very important to make sure if you are in lawless space or if you feel like you're going to be attacked, bring along some friends to man your weapons on board and fly cap for you when needed. The Orion's concept sale started last Friday and runs through March 2nd. It costs $325 and comes with the normal little bits that you get for a concept sale. A poster to put on your wall in your hangar, and a model to put inside of your hangar's display cases when the ship actually hits hangar ready state. Now, something to point out is that you do not need to buy this ship at this point. The biggest thing that buying it right now gives you is LTI, or lifetime insurance. So it does cut the cost of ownership of this vessel by a great deal of money over time. But it is something to point out to you that with the standard rate of earnings being around 1,800 UEC early in the game and growing from there, if you were trying to get to Orion while flying an Aurora in the missions that will be available to you, it will take just under 200 hours of gameplay to amass the funds needed for a ship this size, which makes sense, and that's no different than other games like Elite Dangerous or EVE Online. So this falls right into this same category as other games are charging for ships of this size. How do I feel about this? I like the Orion. I'm not a big miner because of how boring it was in other games, but I'm really looking at the Orion right now as being one of the ships I wish I had money for right now. We'll see what it's like in this weekend after payday, if I actually have one that shows up inside of my hangar. There's something about the RSI ships that I just fall head over heels with, even when they're huge and industrial like this. The mining platform Orion is a behemoth. It is a true Goliath of ships, and it's tailor-made for one thing, and that's to extract resources out of an asteroid. And this thing is going to do it well. At $325, it's definitely not even in the top half of expensive ships out there. This one is in the bottom third, and that's pretty good. $300 and less. Remember, ships go all the way up to $2,500 in this game. I said this in the feature, and I'm going to say it again right now. The only reason to buy the ship now is to support the game, or if you find value in LTI. The insurance is not going to be a huge investment when you start playing the game. So do not worry. They're not going to let you lose your hard-earned cash, your ship. You might have to wait a little bit while it's being rebuilt, but it's no reason to spend $325 you don't have. Now, if you take $1 equals 1 credit, well, 1,000 credits of UEC, you come to the point where this is going to be 325,000 UEC. I think I put the formula up in my head when I was talking in the feature. Just say it's about 2,000 UEC an hour if you own an Aurora or a Mustang. It's going to be just under 200 hours of gameplay. That is not unheard of, and that's about what it takes to get some of the bigger ships inside of Elite Dangerous at this point. So pretty cool, right? Not really too bad. The next feature is one that we've all come to know and love, and it is, of course, What's on Sandy's Facebook. So let's take a look at a shortened segment of What's on Sandy's Facebook. This week's What's on Sandy's Facebook will be much shorter than normal, and that's because I did the show so late last week. I do this show because some of y'all are not on Facebook and don't know to look for some things that might be going on at CIG there. Sandy posts on Facebook as a way to engage people that might not be going to the RSI website all the time, and to try to build up the player base by reaching out into the web of friends that people have that might not know about the game. So let's take a look at the 3 photos that are on here today. The folks over at the Cloud Imperium Games Manchester, England office are hard at work upgrading the Cutlass to the new modular system. Here we see what happens when you gut it of almost everything. There's a ton of space for cargo, and some of you Cutlass pilots I know are going to love this. Get rid of everything inside of it and use that huge interior space to make a lot more money moving cargo from A to B. Not all Cutlass owners want to be less, well, let's say the more nefarious type of person, the pirate. Myself with my Cutlass would want to do something like this. It's a great alternative to owning a freelancer. This next piece looks to me like a coffin, but in actuality it is a escape pod. But it looks more like a coffin, which makes me believe that if I get in it, I'm probably dead. I'm not sure about how things like this are going to work in the game. I can escape out of the ship. If we did that inside of a game like Starlancer, which Chris Roberts did early in the 2000s, you would be picked up by a ship called the Nanny, and there was a whole animated sequence for that. So I'm wondering if after you eject, if there's going to be a sequence similar to that. All in all, though, I like the design of other elements of the game, but this just looks like a box, and to me, sometimes practicality makes more sense than something that's more elaborately drawn. At least this works, at least it makes sense, and of course this is also someplace where you can sleep. In this last image, it's just a picture of Sandy staring at a screen that I have stared at so many times. In fact, that looks just like my monitor. The issue here is the loading screen. It just kept on going and going and going, and this has been happening to me fairly often recently, and obviously if it's happening to me and happening to her, it's going to be something that's going to be fixed rather quickly. Well, Sandy, sorry about that. I was waiting to get in there and take on you and some of the devs there, but all of a sudden I had much more stuff to do. And it looks like she's using a Logitech Wingman Extreme 3D, and that's a good joystick, but I think we got to get her to upgrade to an X55. Well, that's it for this week's segment on What's on Sandy's Facebook, and I'll be back next week with another one. And with that said, let's get back to the end of the show. Sandy, Chris, Ben, David, Will, James, you name them. They're all wonderful people. Most of them have appeared on this show once or twice or many times, like Ben and Sandy. And they're always willing to come and sit down with me and answer questions whenever I can grab them for a few minutes. And I think that Sandy's Facebook actually is one of those things that gives us an idea of what they're doing behind the scenes. Well, why am I tying these two things together? Well, because of this. Let's take a look at one question I was able to get answered by Sandy today. And I'm going to be putting the rest of this interview up for my patrons at patreon.com/batgirl. And I'll release it in my YouTube channel later on, maybe in 2 weeks after they get a chance to watch it. So here's a question that I had Sandy answer in our interview today, which is a makeup interview for the one that we had no sound. But I want to take us back and ask you a couple questions. Like, first and foremost, let's find out, like, how did you meet Chris, and when did he first start talking about this type of endeavor that he wanted to take on?
I first met Chris actually in 2003. I'm not sure if I've told this story before, but I was doing a master's in business and marketing, and in Australia there's only a couple of studios to work for, like Warner Brothers or Fox Studios, and I was actually working at Fox Studios as a director's assistant, and also on the other side of the camera in smaller roles in acting. And so I said to my girlfriends at the dinner table, because the Hollywood Producer's Guide is really thick, and I said, well, does anybody know a company starting with A? And my girlfriend said, yeah, I know this guy called Chris Roberts, and he owns this company called Ascendant Pictures. So it was around the corner from where we lived. And so I did my internship, reading scripts, writing coverage, and I didn't know anything about Chris. And to my shame, I didn't know anything about Wing Commander either. But Chris used to come past the front desk and he'd like mumble something. I'd be like, what? And then he'd just like leave. I'd be like, okay, that's kind of weird. And he'd do that every morning. I'd be like, okay, this guy's kind of strange. And then I asked one of the other producers there. I said, well, what's his deal? I mean, he kind of doesn't speak very well, and which is kind of ironic, right? Because he talks forever and quite eloquently. So they said, well, you know, you should look him up. He's actually a video gaming whiz kid. I said, oh, okay, maybe that explains it. So I looked up his past games and all of his stuff, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. And there happened to actually be an article about Wing Commander that I read, that I printed it out, and so I knocked on his door and I said, hey, yeah, Chris, look, you know, I actually read up about you, and so I gave him this thing, and so that was kind of interesting because he got very embarrassed by that, and so we kind of connected over that. I used to actually play Doom. I think that's been mentioned a few times before, and so I had been playing a lot. Video games quite obsessively, but just not his game. And so we kind of remained friends over talking about other things besides films, although we have common interest in film. And when I came back to America in 2004, Chris and I had remained friends. I worked on some of his films, not on the acting side, but more on the producing side. And he'd always talked about in the latter part, maybe from about 2009 onwards, and we'd catch up. He was talking about Space Traders,
the original title.
Yeah, which is you can be this, you know, Han Solo of the universe. You could be a bounty hunter, a trader, a mercenary, and a pilot, or a pilot. I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. Like I could just really, he was describing it, and I could picture it. And time went on where I guess he was looking at doing it the traditional route. This was going on over until about 2010. So about a year and a half, he went around in the traditional route, and it was going to happen. But then they started wanting to take more of his... you know, when you really get down to it, they want to take creative control and all sorts of... And I said to Chris, well, really, like, isn't it you're the IP. It's not... If it's not for you, they can't replace you with somebody else. So what you're getting is just not, like, enough. So he was like, well, first, anyways, I need to build a prototype. So to show interest, if he wanted to then do like private investors, right? So I guess I kind of answered that question though, didn't I?
You did. You answered a couple of questions there all in one, and that must be because I sent you good notes, right? No, that was good. And thank you for appearing on the show yet again, Sandy. I really appreciate it. But you know, we have a little bit more to talk about right now, and that's we also have a community member that's now having a show. The one, the only, Disco Lando is doing the wonderful world of Star Citizen, and I think that's what the name of the show is. It was on my iPad 2 minutes ago, but of course I've thrown that over to the other side of the room at this point. Episode 1 aired today, sans me. I feel like I failed big time not partaking in this. Jared did a wonderful job getting this together. He is an amazing artist when it comes to doing videos, and I think that he is going to do wonderful on this show. What the show is going to be about is community involvement. It's going to be videos from us, and it should air about once a month. They'll play with that and see how it goes. It might air a little bit more frequently or less frequently. This is just episode 1, and you should be taking a look at it. I'm not going to play it here. I think you need to go out and watch it. This needs to start getting some hits. All right, folks, that brings us to the end. I'm very grateful that every one of you tune in each week to watch me. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And remember, if you do like the episodes, be sure to share them and definitely click that thumbs up button below. It really does help the show. And on top of that, if you really want to go one step further and help support the show, it helps me build my set and be able to do the wonderful interviews that I do. And all you have to do is go to Patreon, Patreon, so patreon.com/Batgirl. With that said, you guys all have a wonderful week. And you all be safe out there. And I'll talk to you soon.